So as we now move into the labor supply side, the first thing that's important is just to bring up again the labor force participation rate. And if you remember back when we talked about in the intro, labor force participation rate is the percentage of the working age population, those 16 and older, who are in the labor force. And the labor force are those who are employed and unemployed. Okay. So again, the labor force participation rate is the labor force divided by the working age population. So if we look at some trends here, a couple things should really stand out. The first is that if you look at, first we're looking at the rates of females. What you're going to see is that more females, for the most part, are working. Okay, and that really goes across all groups. And so if you look at all females over here, you can see that they've gone from 20.6% in 1990 all the way up to 59.9% in 2010. Now, it went down a little bit in the most recent data we have here, but it's gone up a little bit since as the economy has gotten better. And again, you've seen this across all. So single women have always had a relatively high compared to non-single women. But that's been going up. If you looked at what are divorced, same there. But what's really sticks out here is the married women. And the labor force participation rate of married women remained relatively low through the 1930s, and then it really shot up after that. And you see it especially jump up since 1950. So the reason might be, well, why is that? Well, attitudes have changed. Society went from the ideas that it should be a man working and woman raising children to both parents working or women working and men staying at home, whatever it is. But the other reason is that cost of living has gone up. Healthcare costs have gone up. Housing prices have gone up. So it has become more expensive to survive. And one salary anymore, especially when you have children, just doesn't cut it anymore. And so that's why you're seeing more so out of necessity, more women working than men. Now, if we look at males, you'll notice that it's been a little bit of a change compared to female. So because males are not the sole supporters anymore, what you're seeing is that, again, across all groups, you're seeing a decline in the labor force participation rate of males. And it's from over 65 all the way down. So if we look at the by country, this looks at more the industrialized countries throughout the world, the first world countries. So you have Canada, France, Germany, Japan, so forth. And you see really the same trends where women are working more and males are working less in terms of looking at the labor force participation rate. So in the short run, decisions on employment are usually dependent on the firm. So labor demand is what really drives that labor force participation rate in the short run. Okay. And it's usually more so hours worked than number of employees. Okay. Now where that comes in, that's where the labor supply comes from. And so people may choose full-time versus part-time, or 30 hours a week versus 20. Maybe you're just doing a job working 10 hours a week. And so all those decisions come from the supply side. So when it comes down to it, labor is the most abundant form of, or the most abundant factor of production. There's a lot of it. Okay, there's a lot of people out there who want to work. Okay, now a lot of that will depend on the wage and cost of living and so forth, but there's a lot of people that want to work. There's a lot of it, especially compared to physical capital. So a country's well-being in the long run, how much it's going to grow, expand, thrive, is really going to depend on people's willingness to work. Now, because of this, incentives are a very, very big part of the economy, what drives an economy. You have to incentivize people to work. So if we look over here on the right-hand side, you'll see a breakdown of time. So you have a finite amount of time in a day. Okay, you have 24 hours a day. When you figure in time to sleep, eat, bathe, so forth, things that you absolutely need to do, right? There's that finite amount of time. Now, what you do at that time is up to you. People have the choice of what to do. Now, we classify the two broad ranges of time that can be broken down into labor and leisure. Now, leisure is any time that is not labor. So it's any time that you're not working. Labor, on the other hand, can be broken down into two subcategories. And so labor can either be considered working for money, so you go to your job, your employer gives you money, or household production. So a lot of people might think household production, that's, you're not working, so that's not considered labor. But household production is still something that needs to be accomplished. Right? It needs to be accomplished to be able to take your leisure time. And so your household production is going to be your raising children, it's going to be your cooking, your cleaning, and your yard work, and so forth. So that's still considered part of labor. So when you are trying to decide how much to work. Okay. So when it comes down to people's decision of how much to work, if they want to work at all, there's two major factors that can play into that. The first is the opportunity cost of leisure. So what does that mean? Well, every hour that you take of leisure is one less hour you take of labor. Okay. So if you think about it, if you had, we're going to go with 16 hours a day. So you have 16 hours a day of which you have to allocate between labor and leisure. Okay, assuming that the other 8 hours of sleep is it's gone. Okay. So you have 16 hours a day. Well, let's say you worked all 16 hours for pay or any kind of labor. So you work the entire time and you get money for it. Well, now you decide instead of working 16 hours a day and taking no leisure, to working 15 hours and taking 1 hour of leisure. Well, what are you giving up when you do that? Well, yeah, you're giving up that hour of labor, but specifically, if it's for pay, you're giving up that money that you would have made by working. So in essence, what is happening is you are actually paying for your leisure time. You're paying money for it because you're giving it up. And so the opportunity cost of leisure is the money you could have made with labor. Something else that factors into the decision of how much to work, if to work, is the wealth and income you have. So, if you have $1 billion, you may not want to work at all. Okay, if your wealth is $1 billion. Well, if your wealth is $0, now you're going to be more likely to work and work more. Right, so that's wealth. Income is how much you can make from working. And so your income is going to play a role in it. And so, the higher your income, you may want to work more or less, depending on how the arrangement is. And we'll talk more about that.